You're flexible in the speaking list then.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It's my great pleasure to rise and speak on the Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Terrorism Financing and Other Legislation Amendment Bill 2019. The Morrison government's focus on keeping Australians safe is one of our most important priorities, and this bill represents further measures to keep Australians safe. It's a critical element of our commitment to dismantle the criminal business model that this bill passes, and I am pleased to hear that this bill is receiving the support of all parties in the chamber today. I do note Senator McKim's comments and his reservations, and I respect the fact that he has got some reservations, but in referring to Senator McKim's contribution, I do want to just take note of the Legal and Constitutional Affairs Legislation Committee, which conducted an inquiry into the bill and made a recommendation shared by all members of the committee that the bill be passed. And Senator Whish-Wilson, in his opening paragraph in relation to the Greens' additional comments on that inquiry, said, "On the whole, this bill makes sensible and progressive reforms to Australia's anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing regime." So that was the opening position of the Greens. Now, I understand the Greens are seeking an amendment in relation to including real estate agents, accountants and lawyers as designated services under the Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Terrorism Financing Act 2006. I appreciate that, but it is important to reiterate the Greens' strong support for this bill, albeit that the Greens is seeking an amendment. It is always interesting to hear the Greens and Labor at each other's throats in this place, and I certainly won't take issue with Senator McKim's statement, "What is the point of the Labor Party?" And it was a very strong point, and so hopefully when the Greens are thinking about their preferences at the next election, they might reflect on that, because we have seen a very sorry history. No matter how much the Greens are at odds with the Labor Party and how disgusted they are in the Labor Party, we do see a situation at elections where the Greens roll over. They don't tend to look at the substance of what other parties are offering, including our party, and they will roll over and do a cosy deal with Labor in exchanging preferences, as does the Labor Party. And that certainly happened very sadly in Corangamite when I was running in the last federal election. So I hope that all Australians can reflect on that very profound statement of Senator McKim. What is the point of the Labor Party? And of course, Senator Watt, many Australians did ask that question at the last federal election when Mr Shorten was your leader, and of course they made a very significant decision not to put the Labor Party into government. This is a very important law reform. And just very briefly, and I'm just going to make a brief contribution, the bill implements a range of measures to strengthen Australia's capabilities to address money laundering and terrorism financing risks and generate greater regulatory efficiencies, and it includes amendments to expand the circumstances in which reporting entities may rely on customer identification and verification procedures undertaken by a third party, amendments to explicitly prohibit reporting entities from providing a designated service if customer identification procedures cannot be performed. It strengthens protections on correspondent banking by prohibiting financial institutions from entering into a correspondent banking relationship with another financial institution which permits its accounts to be used by a shell bank. And it requires banks to conduct due diligence assessments before entering and during all correspondent banking relationships. The bill expands exceptions to the prohibition on tipping off to permit reporting entities to share suspicious matter reports, and related information with external auditors and foreign members of corporate and designated business groups. It provides a simplified and flexible framework for the use and disclosure of financial intelligence to better support combating money laundering, terrorism, financing and other serious crimes. And so I just also want to make the point that in relation to Senator McKim's contribution, where he tended to focus mainly on the real estate market, the bottom line is, in this country, anti-money laundering is not acceptable in any form, for any purpose, no matter what it is. And that's what this bill is all about. It also addresses barriers to the successful prosecution of money laundering offences by clarifying the existence of one Commonwealth constitutional connector is sufficient to establish an instrument of crime offence, and by deeming that money or property provided by undercover law enforcement as part of a controlled operation to be the proceeds of crime for the purposes of prosecution. The bill also expands the rulemaking powers of the Chief Executive Officer of AUSTRAC across a number of areas. And another important amendment, the bill amends the AFP Act to make it an offence for a person to dishonestly represent that a police award has been conferred on them. So, Acting Deputy President, this is very important law reform. The Morrison government is committed to doing everything possible to stopping criminals from exploiting hard-working Australians and their families. We are committed to combating transnational, serious and organised crime, and that's why this bill is so important, and I commend this bill to the Senate. Thank you.
Senator Scarr. Mr Acting Deputy President, I think Senator McKim might have been watching a bit too much Netflix over the last year. Obviously, he's watched a lot of